Welcome to Unleash Leadership, the podcast where bold leaders and changemakers come together to share their stories, strategies, and insights for creating a lasting impact on society. Karla Blanco is your host. For over 28 years, she has been navigating the complexities of the corporate and government worlds, a journey that's taught her that authentic leadership isn't just about climbing the ladder. It's about lifting others as you rise. Along the way, she uncovered the unwritten rules that drive success, the ones no one tells you about, but that can define your career and legacy. On this podcast, she'll sit down with extraordinary guests from around the globe, leaders, visionaries, and innovators who are leaving their mark on the world. Together, they'll explore their journeys, uncover their tips and tricks, and dive into the challenges they've overcome to inspire you to excel in whatever you're facing. Whether you're climbing the corporate ranks, building your personal brand, or leading change in your community, this podcast is your space to grow, learn, and unleash the leader within. So grab a notebook, get ready to take action, and join us on this journey to unleash our leadership potential. Before we dive in, make sure to follow Karla on Instagram, LinkedIn at Karla Blanco Coach, Karla with a K, and YouTube at Karla Blanco Show to stay connected and get even more leadership tips and updates.
Today, I am thrilled to introduce Anita Battle, who is a human-centered leader, dynamic speaker, and advisor who transforms organizations through empathy, purpose, and cultural humility. With roots in education, tech, and equity, she empowers inclusive communities as a facilitator, advisor, and content creator. A passionate advocate, Anita inspires change through courageous storytelling and serves on multiple boards, including Board of Advisors for LMAU Career and Development, Executive Board Director for Dress for Success San Francisco San Jose, and board member for the City of Alameda Library and the California Bureau of Consumer Affairs. Welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here. Anita, share with us about your journey.
Oh, my journey has been bigger than my wildest dreams, Karla. I I have really lived a blessed and privileged life. Not easy, but it has taken me around the world. I have met people that I never would have dreamed of. I've been to countries that I never would have. And it's just really been a good journey that started as a child. My parents are very, I'm first generation California, first generation to go to college, and first generation to work in corporate America. And that is a result of my parents and their dedication, our extended family as well, and watching the role models that I had to see at holiday dinners or Sunday dinners that really made me want not just to be have a successful career, but be a part of a community outside of work and volunteer and be of service.
That is so inspiring, Anita. And also, you, well, you were a teacher,
Yeah.
second grade teacher. And then from being second grade teacher, you led in tech sales and equity spaces. How was your experience in education
Mm.
shaped your approach to leadership and storytelling? You're such a great storyteller in corporate and community settings. Well, listening to you, maybe those dinners, being with family, teach us to just how to share stories. So tell us more about that.
Oh, yes. My family starts from teachers to judges to civic leaders. I also grew up in the Bay Area during a time where there were the Black Panthers, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta. lots of activism in Berkeley University at People's Park. So all that was around me. And there were always stories. There was always stories. My dad was a longshoreman in one of the biggest, most powerful unions. And what he did to support some of the activism is we didn't eat grapes and many other fruits and vegetables in support of Cesar Chavez. So all of that giving and standing in your space of purpose and principles, I learned that very early. So I didn't eat a lot of vegetables until I was probably older because Cesar was really instrumental at his protests and strikes. And so we always, when we had dinners, we would talk about what's going on in the world. What the Black Panthers were supporting breakfast for children in school and lunch in school. So things of that nature where people were giving. And it just really made me want to be a part of that. So I started even as elementary school. I was a crossing guard. You know, I had my own little team and we went out, had our little red jackets, or if it was raining, our yellow jackets with our stop signs. And even when I went to high school, I was just involved in student council all 4 years.
Mhm.
So always being centered, but yet still an introvert. And I love teaching. I always thought I would be a teacher. Um, at some point, either the beginning of my career or at the end of the career. Um, I went to school to be a lawyer and go into politics, but I was doing student teaching in college at Loyola Marymount. So I really got the bug. And then I went into special ed before I went to second grade. And learning how to be captivating to little ones, how to make them feel special, how to listen, how to observe was the same transitioning of skills that I used when I went into corporate America. I started in training. And so I started in tech before tech was what it is today. And my first manager, George Rosen, really set me on a fantastic pace. No one looked like me back in the 80s. I started in 84. But he had so much confidence in me. He said to me, anyone who can get in front of little kids and teach them and engage them and motivate them, I can't teach you that. I can teach you the technical pieces. You've got everything else, and you will be well on your way with your career because of those skills. And we didn't call them soft skills,
Yes, we didn't.
right? So I went into training and I stayed at Verizon for almost 30 years in various jobs from, as I said, training. I spent the last 17 in corporate sales doing large multi-million-dollar sales for large, well-known companies. And then I moved into the data center world, and I didn't want to carry that quota anymore. But I knew I was a good salesperson, and I knew I could train again, going back to teaching. So that's where I went in, and then over time, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more, moving into the equity space.
That's amazing. Number one, you got a great mentor, and that he could see beyond, inside all the talents you bring to the table. And let's go back to storytelling because it's not just powerful, but it's transformational. And well, you just shared about selling multi-million dollars for a company. So, can you share a moment when a story changed the trajectory of a team, organization, or individual you worked with?
Absolutely. The biggest change that I saw immediately was in 2020. That's when I moved to the equity space. And I was part of a group that we were putting on a corporate-wide, global-wide conversation about race. And as you probably remember, back in May, there was a lot going on with regards to race and women's rights and things of that nature. So, as you probably know, when you're doing a panel discussion, you do some prep work behind the scene, and you know how that transition is going to be. So, as I was moderating the conversation, again, storytelling, I could tell that the one gentleman was not going to end where we discussed. So quickly, I had to think of a transition to get from where I thought he was going to end and then over to the next group of panelists. And what I said at the time was, my dad was born in 1931. My mother was born in 1936. I was born in 1960, and none of us were born with voting rights. That was more powerful than I ever dreamed or thought.
I got chills.
Literally, after the conversation ended, I could see my Teams pages blowing up, my LinkedIn pages requests for connections. Many of these were people that were not in marginalized communities, and they said that was the first time that they understood what privilege is about. That's the first time they recognized that history that they thought was way back was really here. They were working with people from communities that had limited rights.
So
And
powerful.
it was very, very powerful. And literally, I thought of that at the drop of the hat, just trying to be able, again, to tell a story that people could understand. And usually when I talk, Karla, I try to make sure three things come to play. What do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And then what do I want them to do? Because when you can get that feeling, then they'll act.
Yeah.
But if you're just spewing data and books and content, they don't get it. You have to find a way to involve them and repeat. But it all starts with a trust, right?
Yeah.
Trust and the ability to listen, observe, and watch and meet folks where they are and not scold and not tell them what they need to do, but ask them, be curious about what's their North Star, right? What drives them? What's their why? Because it's not about me and what I want to, share with them. It's how do we see that we are a collective community and have a wider lens that we are a global organization, a global community. And when we think local but act globally, I think we can get to that point of having a wider lens to humanity.
And to connect. We are privileged to have access to the technology that we have now,
Yes.
but it is a time when we really need to go deeper on those human skills like listening. Oscar Trimboldi is an author of a book about listening, and on his research, he shares that just 2% of the global population really listen. And you were mentioning just to observe and really connect with the other. And actually, that's why it's not a surprise that you build bridges through empathy. And please share with us in your work across education, technology, and equity, how do you help leaders cultivate empathy and intentionality to build inclusive and purpose-driven communities?
Yeah, that is a challenge because it knocks people off their axle. We're telling them be authentic and vulnerable and empathetic. And we've been taught when we go to school, guard that, right? Guard that. And what I tell them and suggest in the conversation, it's not about being personal. You don't have to give your life story and you don't have to tell them, what you're worried about and your fears. But what you need to do is find the connection, find the commonality in every person that you're leading, that you have a direct report, and be curious enough to say, I need to know more. Tell me more. So when someone is saying something that you don't agree with, don't just say no or just ignore them. Just say, tell me more. Help me. Or if they ask a question that you need time to pause, say, give me a second. We have a tendency, and I've noticed this a lot in sales, that we keep talking. We keep, we're just going, because we want them to get all this information. But our brain takes a while to absorb what they've heard. So
Yeah.
silence is really good, right? Let a person pause, think what you said, reflect on it. And then we need to do the same thing because it's not about our proximity to power and I'm the boss. We need to tell them, share with them, anyone, that fear is okay, but failure is fine,
Yeah.
right? We scare people with, oh, we have to be successful. Oh, we have to, meet these numbers. But failure, we learn more through failure.
Mhm.
And we need to fail so that we can see where we can grow, where we can change, where we can shift. And so when I ask people to think about their teams, what do they need? Maybe someone doesn't speak English as their first language. You might want to give them a little bit more time to do an assignment. Or you might tell them after the end of the meeting, come see me. I'm happy to have a discussion with you about that. Someone might be um, dealing with some personal challenges at home. Say, how are you? And look someone in the eye and let them answer the question. Because oftentimes we're bringing something to the table at work that we're hiding, we're covering. So when we see a person, we can tell them our stories or ask them, well, how do you do this? Some of it is also in our language, Karla.
Yeah.
What's our tone? What words are we using? Are they inclusive words? I ask folks to refrain from using idioms because idioms don't translate across cultures, across language,
That's true.
right? And some words don't transfer. So you might have to use an example, and that example might require a story. It
Yes.
might require, and this is how we do this. So storytelling goes back for ages. We've got the griots that sat and talked and shared stories. The Bible, right? Many of that, the Quran, all of those are stories that we've gotten away from that connect us. And I think more than ever, we need to give each other grace,
Yes.
listen and observe. What are your thoughts?
I really appreciate you sharing because it is that call to our humanity in essence and taking pause, not letting the rush of the day to day taking over the human connection. Thank you for being that bridge and for taking all of us that surround you with you. My experience around you, Anita, has been always such an inspiring experience that I truly appreciate how you live and how you are a testament of what you share with us today.
Oh,
Let's
thank
move. You are really an inspiration. Thank you for that.
you.
And I would like to talk about leadership with cultural humility.
Mm.
You lead with that. And you serve actually on multiple boards that impact career development, equity, and public service. You're living your purpose.
Mhm.
What does cultural humility look like in action, especially when guiding diverse teams and advising institutions?
Ooh, great question. Uh, Culture humility is really having that wider view to humanity. It's sometimes the littlest things. Um, my granddaughter wanted to go to the library, to our local library. And so I took her because she wanted to get a library card. We're filling out the paperwork, and I noticed a term, and it said legal guardian. Hmm. So I went to the counter and I said, I'm her grandmother, but not a legal guardian. Does that matter? They're like, oh, yes, 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 we have to have her, the parents signed. I said, well, many of us are grandparents, we're aunties, we're mentors. Why is that there? And she says, well, I can give you a library card and then she can use it. And my granddaughter she was probably about 7. Just you could see the heartbreaking. She goes, I want my own card. Now, mind you, this I was still giving the same information. So I noticed one of her colleagues walked away, but I didn't take note of that. And I said, well, and I really hate to pull rank. And I said, I'm a newly appointed board member for the library. That will change. And literally, the other woman must have went back and talked to her supervisor, and she came out and said, "Oh, you can give your granddaughter a card." So she didn't know what I had said. By the time I got installed, I talked to our director and told him what happened. And within 4 months, we changed that document. So it did not say legal guardian on there. So, and I found out that the vice president had gone through the same thing with his daughter. So, how many people experience that? If that's the first impression that a child has of a library,
Yeah.
right? Um, Another board I sit on, we serve women in particular, and we are expanding into our community. And one of the things that we're trying to do is serve multiple languages. And so we're doing Spanish. So I'm really trying to lean into my resources where we can partner to get mentors or have speakers come in to speak in Spanish or Portuguese. And that is something that is really important to me as well. But lastly, the board that I sit on for the state of California, I can give immediate impact on that day. I sit on a disciplinary board where our board has the opportunity to give people with a criminal record a second chance. We don't give them a job, but we give them that stepping stone. And I remember this one gentleman, he said, some words about himself and what the behavior he did, and he called himself stupid.
Mm.
And I let him finish. And I said, Mr. Smith, whatever his name was, I need you to do me a favor. I leaned over the table and I said, what you may have done may be called stupid, but you are not stupid. I need you not to refer to yourself. Can you promise me that? His eyes welled up, and it was like the first time he was ever seen. And I knew I was in the right place because when I got appointed to this particular board, it wasn't one that I wanted, but the governor's office thought based on my background, it would be good. Um, so I bring the humanity to that board. The other board members are men who are in that industry. So they know the technical pieces, they know the policies, the procedures, but I know the human piece. And so when we deliberate, I'm able to share what I saw in that individual. If a person has done their time, has been a good community citizen, why not give them a second chance? So I leave Sacramento. It's a full day. I leave driving back to the Bay Area full of life because I know some of those men and women in 30 days are going to get a letter that says yes. And those that do not get the yes will have gotten some type of coaching from me, some kind of, like, please do this. Have you thought about that? So they'll know what to do the next time they come in front of the board.
Thank you for those examples. Amazing. It's like the quote from Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Ah,
Really.
oh,
Yeah.
that sends chills,
Ah,
sends chills, my friend.
thank you for being that change, Anita. Now people understand what I mean being around you and in your presence. It's so meaningful. And you are courageous, and courageous conversations and real change are tied. It begins with the courage to tell our stories,
Yeah.
as you did in that panel that you just to share at the beginning of this discussion. What advice do you have for leaders who struggle to be vulnerable and or authentic in their communication?
Sit with yourself, reflect. What's your why? What's your North Star? Is your North Star as a leader to have multiple people lead and uh, leave you to take on better responsibilities? I think of um, a football coach where at the end of the season, many of those the coaches that are on the staff get promoted, and then they create this legacy. They create this lift and give. It's how do we make more superstars and not be so, oh, I've got to do this by myself, or they can't do it, or you're micromanaging folks. Lead them, guide them, empower them, and be mindful, as I said earlier, of the tone of the um, bringing your joy to the team. Oftentimes, this is a question when I'm interviewing folks, or if I was on a job interview, and I ask them, "What brings you joy? What makes you smile on a given day?" And that changes everything. So find out what your North Star is, and how do you not just share it with your team and your non-direct reports, but how do you model it with consistency? Do your words measure your behavior? And as I said, um, how do we make sure that we are mindful with our tone? But lastly, lean in, iterate, and evolve. I'm also often disappointed when people say, well, they changed their mind. They used to be this way. They used to believe in that. Well, that's the joy of evolving, right? That's why we go from preschool to eighth grade to college to wherever, to the workforce. We evolve, and we can be able to say, I never thought about it that way. Let's talk about that more. Let's um, let's see how that will work. And I also tell folks, leaders, when you go into the room and you're about to brainstorm or talk about something, the leader should be the last person to share their views,
Yes.
right? Because you are going to intimidate folks because they're going to think they have to subscribe. Let them color outside the lines. Let them think about um, something far down the line that we haven't thought about. Let's widen that aperture for doing things different than business as usual. And then just be able to, when you talk about that, find a story that you've maybe experienced if you watch it. And stories don't have to be elaborate. It could just be, I've been thinking about this and I want to ask you about Y, or I want to ask you about B. Let's talk about it and what you've experienced. Involve folks so that they can feel valued, they can feel open enough to share their ideas, their failures, or their joys. And it's not always about the happy hour or oh, let's do some team building. It's how do you model this on a day-to-day basis so that folks thrive around you. There was a point in time I had 19 mentees. It's like because I couldn't tell them no. But each one desired something different. Some of them wanted to talk on a regular cadence, others when they needed something, some just wanted to be able to say hi to me. It's that is the sign that I'm elevating folks because they want to learn.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I tell them, not the last one of the things I tell is have multiple mentors. Even if you're a leader, you should have a leader that might help you with finance, someone that might be able to understand entrepreneurship. We should always have multiple mentors that don't look like us and don't always
Mhm.
think like us. I need to be challenged. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room,
Exactly.
right? So that's how I am. I'm very straightforward um, and honest. You haven't asked this question, but I want to be mindful of it in the sense that I am a woman of color. You can't get past that when I walk in a room or when I'm on a Zoom call. So I bring a little bit of a different burden to the table because some people might think affirmative action, DEI, but many of us that are from marginalized communities had to do things differently. We had to not only maybe work harder, faster, smarter, but we're also carrying the burden of our community. I've
Mhm.
often been the first and the only, which makes things a little difficult and failure. Who can I talk to? Because these people don't understand what I'm going through. Oftentimes I said yes because I knew if I said no, they would not ask another person who looked like me. So I took on assignments that I actually got transferred to a particular state that was not friendly to women and that was not friendly to people of color. But I took it and did the best that I could, came back to another opportunity. So it's being able to work through all of the emotions, the characteristics that define me. And I'm very mindful that, yes, I am a woman of color, and things are not always the same for me. But I don't want to make that too much of a burden that I don't see things from that wide view.
Yes, that wide view really help us.
It does.
Yes, to bring different perspectives too into
Mhm.
that view. Thank you. And you shared about having 19 mentees. What about your mentors? Is there any mentor that you remember that really made a difference?
My first boss was definitely a help for me. Back then, we didn't talk about mentors and sponsors and things of that nature. But one of the persons that I just admired from afar, and I had the opportunity to meet them several times, was Maya Angelou. Her
Mm.
boldness, her courageousness, and her grace. And I remember listening to her at this little bookstore. I was in college. And I said, when I grow up, I want to be like her. I want to be able to handle a terse situation with grace like she did. So I model from afar, watch from afar, my family, of how to carry myself. And oftentimes I will still do things and think, would my parents be okay with that? Well, my dad, does this represent my dad's last name, or our family brand? And that's really important to me, and how I represent myself, not just for me sitting here. I'm someone's mother, I'm someone's daughter, I'm a woman of color with a certain privilege and a certain amount of credibility that I want to bring and trust when someone sits with me in confidence, and when someone sits with me just wanting to learn or just have a
And
conversation.
that grace shows in your presence always.
And
So
it comes with life. It comes with life. We have setbacks. I haven't talked much about the setbacks, but there have been setbacks. But I firmly believe, between radical hope and joy, I am where I'm supposed to be at the right time, at that right moment. And on the shoulders of women, people of color before me, I'm doing the same thing for those behind me. Is making sure that I give back, so that some of these women and men don't have to endure some of the obstacles that I did. And if they do, they know how to overcome them and dream big.
well, let's talk about setbacks and any challenge that you would like to share with us, because sometimes we see these amazing women, but there have been also some setbacks in your life. So,
Yeah, I think the biggest setback and disappointment is not getting the promotions that I what had earned, that I should have received. Often being told, not right now, it's not your time, not your turn. Oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z, but that X, Y, and Z has never been part of my goals or my KPIs. So that has been a disappointment. And watching other people that got promotions and I did not receive those promotions over time. But I just resolved that there's a reason I did not, right? And it wasn't meant for me. So maybe that job was not going to be a good job, right? Or whatever. But it still, gives me pause to think about, looking at certain people who started around the same time as I did or whatever, and they might be 3 or 4 levels beyond me.
mhm.
And it's just having that right person. And again, going back to being a woman of color, oftentimes people promote who they think that they can work the best with, or there's lots of stereotypes that go along with a woman of color, and they're like, oh, I've never dealt with a black woman, or it's going to be easy if I deal with XYZ person. So those are the realities. um, Disappointments, and not so much a disappointment, but a challenge during the last, probably the last decade. I had some family challenges. My mother was ill, and my dad had a massive heart attack and passed. And then
So,
I became my mother's caregiver. And that teaches you a lot
mm,
about the honor and the privilege of caring for someone who took care of you, that role reversal. And it really brought me a sense of gratitude and a sense of joy and a sense of purpose to be able to care for my mother, who was in hospice and given 6 months to live. And she lived 2.5 years.
no.
Um, Again, so maybe if I had received those promotions, I wouldn't have been able to care for my mother, right? So I try to find and use a sense of faith and hope that I too have found my footing, my place, and maybe my place is a little bit different than what this the standard acceleration by having a title.
Mhm.
Maybe I have a wider reach because I'm not stuck in a corporate job doing the corporate things. Now I get to pick and choose where I want to give, how I want to give, and how much time, which is a joy.
It is a joy. And share with us about an accomplishment that you are proud of.
My biggest accomplishment, Karla, is raising my son. I was a young, single, unwed Black mother raising a young Black boy. And he is a kind, thoughtful person, faithful, and a wonderful dad. That is, that's my joy. That is an accomplishment that uh, beyond all of the accomplishments I've had from the corporate world, he sacrificed a lot because I was traveling or working 70 or 80 hours a week. But yet he had a foundation of love and kindness and caring that he knew what I was doing was something that was meant to be. And we have a great relationship. We talk or text every day, pretty much. So that's my biggest accomplishment, my friend.
Biggest success in life, leaving an amazing legacy through your son.
Yes. Oh, I hadn't even thought of it that way, but yes, good legacy. Good legacy.
Thank you for everything that you shared. Could you please share with us what unleashed leadership means for you?
Oh, unleashed leadership is showing up with curiosity, showing up with an eagerness to learn and to evolve. It's building connections based on trust, integrity, and purpose. And yet it's being kind and bold and courageous. And lastly, for me, it's just modeling hope and joy.
Important.
Yeah,
And for any leader listening, that's what leaders are called for, to bring hope to their teams and their people.
yes, the possibilities,
Mm.
the possibilities. You want them to go, what if, with a smile.
With
Have
us.
that curiosity that we had when we were young kids, and we never questioned the whys or protocols, but let's bring those ideas and the eagerness to want to try. Yeah.
This was a precious time, Anita. Thank you
Oh,
so much
it is.
for sharing all those insights. I truly appreciate having you here.
It's my pleasure, Karla. I have always enjoyed our conversations, following you and your journey, and being able to see what I can take from you. So this is a true honor to be able to have this fantastic conversation with you.